All right, welcome in another edition of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. He's Bob Ryan. I'm Jeff Goodman, and we have a Game 7, Robert, between the Celtics and the Toronto Raptors Friday night. We were 0.5 seconds away from the Celtics leading 3-0 in the series, and nobody's come back from that before in the NBA playoffs. And now, listen, I'll tell you what, if I'm a betting man right now, I think I'm going with the Raptors in Game 7.
First of all, if the Raptors win, the Celtics, each one of them is going to, for the rest of their life, there's going to be 0.5 will be hanging over their head. It'll be the 28-3 in Boston Celtics history. It'll be the 1.3 in Scottie Pippen's history, right? 0.5. And a mental lapse of allowing him open, no matter who it was totally open. All right. Yes, I think the Raptors are in a great position, and I don't believe in momentum at all. It's not that. It's just who they are. It's just the games that they're capable of playing. And their star, their current star, and came up huge, and the Celtics newly beloved and enraptured guy did not. Kemba did not have it. That's why if I'm a Celtic fan, I'm rationalizing, Kemba's going to bounce back. He's a 30 waiting to happen. That's a rationalization. I'm speaking strictly fan rationalization, and I'm putting myself in that category for this. But I like the Raptors better than the Bucks anyway coming in. We talked about this. I was a Bucks skeptic. We can get to that. But the Raptors have really impressed me, and they should be impressing everybody with their grit. Now, it's an interesting thing though, the talent thing. Remember this: if I'm the Celtics, I'm saying, well, we have pounded them 3 times in this bubble. Once in the 8 games run up, and twice in this series. We have wired them. We are good. We can beat this team. So they're each going to be able to try to latch on to something, in terms of the confidence factor going into that game.
Yeah, the biggest thing that scares me about the Celtics is the thing that can make them great at times, and the thing that's made Marcus Smart a much better shooter. Is the leash that Brad Stevens gives them shooting threes. I like it, but I hate it. I hate it because they're so trigger happy. And to me, like Jaylen Brown, I know he played great last night, but sometimes you make a few of them, you fall in love with them.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Jaylen Brown's best asset is what? Going to the basket, going downhill.
North-south.
I'd much rather have him doing that than shooting threes. Marcus Smart, same thing. I know he made them yesterday early, but I would not want him shooting threes. Now, again, the last one he shot was that's just a Hail Mary type shot that got a decent look on. But it scares me. And I think when they don't have Serge Ibaka in there, Toronto, they don't really have a guy that's a big time shot blocker Siakam's kind of, he's a decent shot blocker, but he's out in the perimeter, so I'm guarding. They don't have a rim protector. So to me, I would attack every time they're playing smaller. They've got Gasol underneath the basket.
Daniel Tice had 3 penetration dunks. Yeah. Right. And what we're talking about here. He's really played well in this whole series, by the way.
He's terrific.
There were at least a couple of them significant occasions last night when the Celtics played 20-20 basketball, which I say passed up the obvious layup to go for the 3. That's the game. We all know, Jeff.
I know. You hate it.
You say you hate it.
Yeah.
You can't hate it more than I hate it.
Yeah, I know.
You know how I feel about the 3 in general. But it's the game. It isn't changing. It isn't going back. That's it. Okay. Now another one thing that I've said all along, and this has been going on for 2 years, or maybe 3. What do the Celtics lack? They don't have a guy coming off the bench that is going to get you 15 or 20 on a semi-regular basis, 15 at least, if not 20. They don't have that guy. They got a nice game the other night.
Bob, they don't even play a wing guard off the bench. Last night, they put Wanamaker, your backup point guard. Grant Williams is a 4-man. Robert Williams is a 5-man. He played 8 minutes. Grant played 7. Shemi Ojeleye is a forward who played 4. So right. They don't even put out a guy that's a scoring wing guard, whatever you want to call it, off the bench. Brad Stevens has eliminated that. Your boy Carson Edwards can't get off the bench, and rightfully so.
Right. Yeah, and not that Norman Powell is the greatest thing on earth, but boy, he
was
is
last night.
A lot better than what the Celtics have in that regard. And he has had some big games. And last night, of course, may have been the most significant game of his entire NBA career.
Yeah.
quite frankly.
23 points.
He was tremendous and important and very in a winner go home game. Norman Powell came up huge for them, and he's an asset for them. Yeah, it's an interesting, very interesting series. I must admit, when the Celtics were up 4 in the OT, I thought pretty damn good. But boy, they made some big plays. Lowry has just been sensational. I mean, talk about an MVP in the playoffs. I mean, he's right up there with all the other names you can mention so far. You know, he's up there with Leonard. He's up there with anybody the way he's been playing. You know, and you gotta love it. So there's a lot to rationalize either way. You know, I'll say this from me fan one, and I'm out of the mainstream because most people take it a lot harder if they lose. They lose to this team, I'm not going to feel that bad. I'll feel bad about the 0.5. Yeah. I always feel bad about the 0.5. I mean that's a lockdown game. You got to win the game. But losing to the Raptors is no disgrace in general. I'm sorry. No. Period. End of. No.
You know what would be? I do think if the Celtics win a Game 7 against the Raptors, I think it's going to be huge going into Miami because Miami is just as tough, right? Maybe not as mentally tough as VanVleet and Lowry, but physically they're mentally tough. Their culture is strong. So I think if they can win a Game 7, I do think that's going to be important going forward. But again, you got to get there, and Friday night's going to be a tough. It's going to be a war. I mean, you hate to use those terms with a basketball game, but in this day and age, with two teams that do shoot 80-plus three-pointers, it is kind of a war with these two teams because, again, Lowry, VanVleet, they're just guys who have that DNA of just kind of working hard, chipping their shoulder. I remember, Bob, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I'm sitting at an AU tournament. It was actually a high school tournament in December in Lewis, Delaware, when Kyle Lowry was a junior in high school. I played for Cardinal Dockery in Philly. And I'm sitting there with a couple high major assistant coaches. I won't put their names out there. I don't want to embarrass them. But I'm right with them. And we're watching Kyle Lowry, and we're just shooting the shit, talking, and we're all saying, I don't think he's good enough to play at the highest level in college. I don't think he's a high major guy. I think he's probably better suited for lower high major, a Rutgers, a Seton Hall back then, somebody like that. And man, has he proven me and those guys wrong.
Did he have anything resembling this body then, or is this something that he's?
No, he had the body, but that's what scared you in a little bit. Like he had this kind of rotund little, he's short, he's stocky, he's not a great athlete. But
kind of like Khalid Al-Amin, right?
Yes, not as portly.
That idea.
As Amin, but close. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. Well,
and Vleet's been terrific.
I loved him in college. I was on that bandwagon early. I really was. And anunoby, boy, is he growing up in front of our eyes.
That's the key. I actually think he's been the key in the series, especially last night, because the job he's done on Tatum defensively, and he's making open shots. Anunoby is not a guy. Right. Not a guy I thought would be
They'll never have to buy in Toronto if they win this series. That's for sure.
Honestly.
Well, it's been fascinating. So meanwhile, we have to say goodbye to the 53-12 team. That I doubted all year.
You did.
But there's an asterisk, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think that Miami wins if he never gets hurt?
Yes. I still think they win. I do. I think they win. I think maybe it gets to 6. Or something like that. But they were the better team when Giannis was on the court and he was healthy.
They were.
I don't fault Giannis. A lot of people are faulting Giannis. Well, if you're the MVP, you're the best player, you should be able to carry the team. I get it. He's not that type of player, right, that's going to rain threes. So you can defend him. You can game plan for him a little easier. And I've said it all year. You've questioned Milwaukee, and I'm with you. And the biggest thing I've said all year is point guard play. I don't trust Eric Bledsoe, period. And to me, Eric Bledsoe is a point guard for a starting point guard for a non-playoff team or a great backup for a contender. And he's putting a role right now. He and George Hill, they're just not good enough. And you need guys that you can count on that can space the court. You better have a point guard who can make shots, space the court with Giannis, make his life a little bit easier. And And then, DiVincenzo and Connaughton weren't very good in this series at all. So I don't think you can put the blame on Giannis, but I think the biggest question, Bob, that we're going to hear over and over and over on ESPN and everywhere else in the offseason is, well, is Giannis going to, request a trade? Is he going to be in Milwaukee? Blah, 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 blah. I think he plays out his contract. I don't know if he re-signs in Milwaukee after his contract's up, but I don't – listen, but I would have said the same thing about Anthony Davis. Like, I didn't see Anthony Davis doing what he did, but ultimately it was Rich Paul, an agent, who got to him and basically told him, this is what you need to do. I'll do it. I'll take the hit for you. We'll force the trade and get you to the Lakers with LeBron. I don't know who would do that for Giannis, but somebody can get in his ear and change certainly his tune right now.
The nightmare has started for Milwaukee. They're going to have to listen to this incessantly until it's done. And if it's not done before next season, what a thing to be hanging over, hearing this every night next season. Oh, no, they're in for trouble. They would have been well advised to get the job done as much as they could, but I question them. And, that's that. Miami, meanwhile, they're dangerous. That's the word I use on them all along. Dangerous. Well, they've elevated themselves a little bit into whatever the next level up after dangerous is. Formidable. How's that? Formidable. They're, the shooting scares the hell out of you. And Bam Adebayo, oh boy, he's better than I ever realized. I'll just put it that way. And
he's the high school AAU Bam. Like, I saw him a lot in high school and AAU, and I was like, oh my God, he's a killer. And then he went to Kentucky, and honestly, he was very mediocre. And Miami got a steal with him. I saw something last week. I saw a film. It might have been JJ Redick's podcast, and he had D'Angelo Russell on, and they asked him, who's the one player you want on your team, like under 25 years old right now? And D'Angelo Russell, who does not play with Bam, he's not on the Miami Heat, he said Bam Adebayo. I was like, whoa, that's strong for Luka, Tatum.
Yeah,
I'll say a bunch of other players.
I'm not sure I'd go that far.
Me either. But it was interesting that you'd even – now, again, think about it. That's a guard who loves to play in the pick and roll, D'Angelo Russell, saying he wants Bam because he knows how much easier that would make life for him to have a big guy like Bam who can also guard. I mean, listen, he can guard at least 4 positions, and he moves his feet well enough. He can probably stick with a point guard if it's not one of those jitterbug point guards for a little bit.
Meanwhile, the most interesting development of the last several days in the other side of the country, it's amazing. 4 days ago, it was not even on anybody's discussion. Rajon Rondo, this element that he's given the Lakers, if it's for real, if it isn't just a thunderstorm that's over and it's got a long-lasting soaking rain that's going to last for the rest of the playoffs, how much has this changed how you look at the Lakers?
A little bit. I don't know if you can rely on Rondo every game. I think if you can get one out of Rondo every 3 games, get one out of Kuzma every 3 games, and get one out of a Dion Waiters every 3 games, you're good. You need that third guy. I mean,
you do.
You and I talked about this in the preseason. You remember we went through the list of the Lakers and Clippers?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Right.
And remember, at the end of it, you were like, oh, man, like the Clippers are deeper. They're better than both of us thought until we kind of saw it on paper how much deeper that the Clippers are in terms of their quality depth coming off the bench, because the Lakers really have nothing. I mean, remember the days when I would get it. People would try to compare Kyle Kuzma to Jayson Tatum a year ago, like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. But I think it was closer to a year ago, and say, like, who's better? I'd be arguing with people. I'm like, no, Kyle Kuzma can't really shoot the ball. He can't, like, he's a great second unit guy, but he can't be your third best player on a championship team. Now, maybe he can be. I don't think he's their third best player. I think ultimately you're going to see that if the Lakers win it all, they're not going to have a third best player. It's a revolving door.
It's a revolving door.
Rondo's got to be a part of that revolving door.
Yeah, but he gives him a dimension. And the thing about it, when he's a guy that when in his Celtics prime, when he could put up triple doubles without scoring a basket longer than 2 feet.
Yes.
And when he makes shots, it's almost unfair. He's made shots in these 2 games. including rather big ones in the game before this, and of course comes up with 20. Yeah, that's not
playoff Rondo.
He's got 13-year history to prove to us that's not him. He's not going to keep making those shots. But if you go all the way, I dial all the way back to 2008, and against Cleveland, he came up big with some big shots.
Yep.
When we weren't
he can make them.
But
you've watched him practice before the games. I have. Like, he can make them in practice. He just never really made them in games consistently. Not a great shooter, but you know what? I think LeBron. The bottom line is LeBron can trust Rondo because Rondo's got that too. He's got that mental toughness.
He's tough. Oh yeah, he's tough.
He'll take the shot. He'll take it. He doesn't. Obviously, because of what he's been able to do here in Boston, he doesn't cower to the moment. And I think that's so important
you look back,
to have alongside LeBron. You can't have a guy. And most of those guys, listen, I don't think Kuzma does either. I don't think Markieff Morris, JR, Waiters, they're just not – they're not good enough. That group just scares me. That everybody not named LeBron and AD scares the shit out of me in the league, right?
Yeah. But they do have LeBron and AD. It's going to be, it looks like it's going to come down to that. The Clippers, now they've been here before.
Are you still in on the Lakers? Are you still in on the Lakers, by the way? Like, are you still, if I said to you, who's going to win this whole thing today, are you still I feel good?
I'm not ready to jump off right now. I have too much respect for LeBron and AD, but they're flawed. There's no team for the ages this year. It's available.
The Clippers aren't flawed, Bob. I would say this: like, what's the Clippers' major flaw? They've got it's not like Zubac is great, but he's a solid big. Harrell coming off the bench is pretty good with his energy. Obviously, you got Lou Will coming off the bench. That's terrific. You've got your 1-2 punch. It's not as good as the Lakers' 1-2 punch. Obviously, we know that.
Particularly the way George has been in and out.
Right. Agreed.
But and even in the best of times, the best 1-2 punch is LeBron and AD right now. I mean, nobody should be able to argue that. Now, the Clippers are deeper. When they play well, they look like a very, very difficult team to beat. They're getting along right now with Lou Will being so-so, and he's a 25-point game ready to happen.
At any point.
Probably will explode in Denver's face in the next game, I bet. I think I'm looking for him to be the man to put him over the top, get it done, and they're going to then get ready for the Lakers. They're Kawhi. I mean, we just can't heap enough praise on his steadiness every night. And I know everybody's talking about LeBron comparisons, and I keep coming back. The guy whose numbers, the steadiness, the every night, the metronomic is Oscar Robertson. This is Oscar again, as much as it's anybody in the history of the game. And people forget, the youngins don't.
Did he guard? Did Oscar guard big time? Was he like an elite defender?
As he got older, he had no. He took greater pride as he got older, particularly when he got to the Bucks. And he was the missing ingredient for the Bucks to win the championship. He guarded then. He was never. West was always the most superior. They were the comparison guys, and sure. West was a superior defender for his career, no question. Oscar was not noted. He wouldn't look you in the eye and tell you I was a great. Oh, he might, but he was really wrong.
He would tell you he was great at everything.
Yeah, Oscar is an interesting guy, but
yes.
Anyway. But no, he doesn't compare to Kawhi in the defensive end of the floor. But anyway, Kawhi every night, 30, 10, 8, 30, 11, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30.
Bob, his approach is unlike anybody others. Like I just feel like even LeBron, like Kawhi's approach is what? He rarely, he'll complain about a call. He will, but he won't do like LeBron did the other night. Like LeBron literally, it was a cheap foul he picked up. He did not stop for like a minute and a half straight with the officials. Yeah. And now I get why Tatum is a whiner and a complainer, because when you watch and you're Jason Tatum and you watch LeBron and you watch every other star player, they don't shut up. It is so hard to watch now. And again, I come from the college game too, where the players don't whine. It's all the coaches. The coaches don't shut up in college. It's awful.
Speaking of which, it was said of Oscar deep into his career. I remember he's the first guy I heard this said about, that he's played X years in the league and he's never committed a foul. So he was known for that too.
Really? He was that bad?
Yeah, Rick Barry, of course, another one.
Oh.
But but
I've
that's a
heard the Rick
phenomenon.
Barry stories.
So point being that's a phenomenon that is as old as basketball, But it's very pronounced right now. Yeah, no. So the Clippers are, they've been, in the Doc era, they've been there knocking on that door, and they haven't pushed it open yet.
This is the year. This is their opportunity.
At least to get to the finals.
Right.
And they got no excuse not to now. They got no injury excuse. They got no excuse not to.
Is it going to be a letdown? Lakers are going to play the Clippers. We're pretty confident of that. Is it going to be a letdown for the NBA Finals because you're going to have one of those two playing against the Bucks? I mean, not the Bucks, the Heat or the Celtics or Toronto.
Well, the Raptors. The Celtics, they might be able to sell the public on the history. You wish you would easily sell them the Raptors. They don't move the needle, I guess.
At all.
They certainly do above the border, but
Can you sell the Heat? Can you sell a Heat Lakers series or a Heat? I don't think you can. I mean, I'd love to see it because, man, it would be fun to watch Duncan Robinson.
No, we will enjoy it.
Right.
Right. The ratings might not be what they'd like. But I mean, to me, I never give a damn. Whoever gets there, and it's fine with me. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It'll be something.
So Billy Donovan, we've talked about this a week ago. He got whacked. He kind of got whacked, but he didn't. Okay, so my sources say, Bob, that there was a 2-year contract on the table for Billy Donovan, and he turned it down. He and Sam Presti kind of went sideways. This was the last year of his deal. They haven't given him. Listen. Sam Presti's done a kind of a shitty job lately of assembling. I mean, obviously he was able to get Chris Paul in the Westbrook deal. Yeah. But look at some of those other players. Like, where's your offense coming from? Steven Adams, Lou Dort's a hell of a defender. Darius Baisley, he's got to play. He's got Andre Robertson still on the roster who hadn't played for 2 years and can't make a shot. I think Billy finally said, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm not taking this contract offer. This isn't a scenario set up for me to succeed. It's really set up for me to fail, and the pieces aren't there. So I'm not taking this offer.
Well, if I'm him, I got my agent making a Google eyes at Indiana. Yeah. Of the 3 available jobs we're talking about with Philadelphia, which do I want to get involved in trying to figure out that?
No, yes. Billy doesn't want that shit.
And
no way.
Chicago, whatever.
New Orleans. New Orleans would be right there.
You got New Orleans. I forgot about New Orleans. So right. Zion. She's going. It'd be hard for me to believe he won't be coaching one of those teams next year.
I think he will. I think it's funny because a couple of years ago you would have said if he got fired, he might not have gotten another chance. I think this year, with no expectations, helped him land now another NBA job. I think New Orleans would be one because that young core. I mean, New Orleans, you've got clay that you can mold.
Oh,
with Zion, with Brandon Ingram, can you get Lonzo to what I thought Lonzo would be? You got, you just got a lot there. But Indiana, I'm with you. I mean, listen, they got good young pieces.
What they did without Sabonis,
right?
And they were impressive. No, that's the one I'd want. But Zion's intriguing. I know Zion's intriguing. He's
coachable. Right? He's coachable. Ingram's coachable. Lonzo's coachable. I think that's the hard part for Billy. He walked into a situation with KD and Russ. You're not coaching them. I mean, and then you were left with Russ, and you're certainly not coaching him. Whatever play you're going to call, it doesn't matter. He's going to run whatever the hell he wants. So I think that's where Billy enjoyed this year because at least Chris Paul is more coachable. He's stubborn, but he's competitive. I think they did a good job together. And, I think Billy – I don't see a scenario where he goes back to college. I really don't. I would be absolutely shocked if he goes back to college.
Yeah, I would – I mean, these are 2 really enticing jobs out of those 4. So I would think he'd have to be a candidate for one of them. But I just go back. My Billy Donovan story involves Rick. And when Rick Pitino took over the job in Providence, I went down and had lunch with him. And he was talking about, he's got this kid Donovan, and it was going to be a junior. And he said, I told him, you got to lose 20 pounds. And if you don't lose 20 pounds, you're out of here. And he did. And we all know what, how that one worked out in Providence, But, yeah, I always think of that.
A good segue, Bob, because it came out yesterday that the ACC coaches, I broke it yesterday morning.
Yes.
They were on a call, and all of a sudden I get a text from one of the coaches in the middle of the call. And he says, I'm going to try to find the text. But basically the text was, ACC coaches agree on a proposal to include every team in the NCAA tournament this year. 346 are eligible of the 357, and they all semi-agreed. They agreed. Listen, Coach K spearheaded it, from what I'm told, along with the Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick. They were the two that kind of spearheaded this.
Mm-hmm.
And my big thing I've been trying to figure out for the last 24 hours now. Here's my big thing, and I'll get your comment on what you think of the idea after. My big thing, what is Coach K's ulterior motive to this, Bob? That's what I want to know, because there is an ulterior motive. I just can't imagine it's, well, we want to include every team. I don't know. I'm not buying it.
Oh, I saw his statement, and it sounded so generous, yes, if you will, and so happy. No, I totally agree with you. What are the logistics of this? That's Stephen. I'm apoplectic.
They haven't thought that far ahead. They don't know what the logistics are. They just like the fact of
how can you propose something as completely and utterly radical and cumbersome as this, and then tell me we'll figure out later. We'll shoot first and ask questions later. No. This is it's ridiculous. Yeah. And I want to know, right, with you, what is the real reason?
I think it's this, Bob. Here's I'm trying to put on my skeptic's hat, which is always on me anyway. And I'm trying to figure it out. And the only thing I can think of is the coaches, especially in the ACC. If you listen to when K comes to BC and they beat BC last year, it's all about defending Jim Christian. Great coach, should keep his job, this, that. He does that with everybody. I give him a lot of credit. He really does. And I wonder if this is, let's throw it out there to include everybody. And then we'll try to just get it expanded to 96. Right? Let's push for everything, and then we'll settle in the middle.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I don't like it, but that makes sense.
Right. I don't mind it for this year. Bob, I don't mind 96 for this year. If you want to do it for this year, I said this a couple months ago. Give every team, every conference, 2 automatic bids for the top 2 teams in the regular season. That's 64 right there. And then give 32 more when you expand it to 96 to the at-larges, which will be primarily, if you're giving 2 automatic bids to all the mids, all those remaining 32 will go to the high major conferences.
Yeah.
So they'll be happy. You'll have, honestly, 50 of the 75 high major schools will get in the tournament. So they'll all be happy. And you want to go 96, give some buys to begin with, whatever you want to do.
Well, Coach K did say, I believe, that this proposal is about this year only. Right. Because it's a strange year, it's an aberrational year, and all that. But you're right. That makes sense to me. I know they've been talking about going in that direction for years. Look, I'm still fighting. I'm still angry they went to 68. So 64 was perfect.
So with you. The first four, Bob, is listen, I cover the sport, and I don't want to watch those games, to be honest. I don't. They're not a part of the bracket. I'm packing to leave.
Yeah.
The next day. So I'm literally packing as I'm watching whoever it is, whether it's 2, high majors that don't deserve to get in, or, or 4 of them ultimately, and then, or 4 teams that are, that are in via the low major leagues, automatic berth, and playing each other, and nobody cares.
No, but they do it. They did it, and that's it. But, well, anyway, Coach, that's a interesting. How long do you think it'll take for this to play out?
I think most coaches, if you ask them, what they should have done, Bob, was align themselves with every other league and every other coach and said, it's not going to – we came up with this, but let's get every league on board and put it out there that all 357 coaches are on board with this rather than just the ACC. And I think you would have had more power in numbers if you had thought this out. Now, I talked to Steve Forbes, Wake Forest head coach, who's new to the last night. I talked to him, and I think he admitted that, listen, if we had tried to do that, it would have been leaked out to somebody, and they never would have gotten that far. But I would have tried. I would have tried to have a conference call or do something with all the coaches saying, hey, this is completely top secret. Tell me, are you in favor of this or not? Because I think if you had done it power and numbers and you had educated, the organization is so poor. Now it's poor with all, NBA, we saw it. NFL, it hasn't been great. Most of the leagues, and I know it's even harder to do in college sports because you've got so many different entities underneath the NCAA that don't even necessarily work for the NCAA, trying to get on the same page. But I just feel like the problem with college sports right now is everybody's out for themselves instead of saying, how are we going to do this and have some semblance of a regular season first? Let's figure that out. And then we can figure out the NCAA tournament. We don't have to figure out the tournament today. Let's see what the regular season is going to look like first.
Yeah, really. My mind just can't grasp the idea of the logistics. I'm sorry. I just can't. And by the way, speaking of the NCAA tournament, I think we would be well to pay our respects to the late Tom Jernstedt, who was, as much as anyone in the history of the tournament, the man who helped shape it into the Final Four March Madness that we've come to know. Since when he took over the tournament in 1973.
Did a great job.
It's become so much bigger and so much more, and he gets a lot of that credit. Tom Jernstedt passed away this past week, and so I just think we should.
On a positive note, we'll flip that, and my daughter turned 17 today.
Happy birthday!
17. It's,
oh boy,
crazy to me. I mean, I got 2 more years and she's off to college, and
17 and a sports nut that you didn't know you had.
Out of her mind, out of her absolute mind of last year. As we've talked about, it's been a lot of fun. But let me give you something on the driving. She got her license like 2 weeks ago, and when I started teaching her early, almost a year ago now, she got a permit. I remember it was before the pandemic hit, and started teaching her. I'm like, she's pretty good. She's good. Like, I'm impressed. I kind of took her on side roads before she even had her permit, and I'm like, all right, she's going to be pretty good. And then I think she tapered off a little bit, Bob. I think she tapered off. We've had like 3 experiences like where I was worried for my own life and her life. And
she's getting a little too confident, maybe.
Maybe I don't know what it was, but she had one where she backing out of the driveway. We back out onto a main street here in Newburyport, and she hit the gas too hard, and ended up going the wrong way on the street, and we had a car literally coming towards us. So I yelled so loud that the dog in the house, my wife told me, heard me and started running to the door, worried about what was going on. But yeah, it's a tough. It's fun. It's
a milestone.
It's a milestone, but man, it is. There aren't many things that are more stressful than driving, especially in some of the areas like I can't imagine allowing her to drive in like downtown Boston, and I think I did it right away. I'm pretty sure I did
at this particular point in time, it's not quite as hectic as it would have been a year ago or 6 months ago. Seriously,
now's time, but now's not the time for me. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to send her by herself into Boston. If she goes into Boston, I'm telling you, I'll be trailing her in my car the entire week. Yes, it's not pretty. But happy birthday to my daughter Talia. Have a good weekend.
Yes, and we'll have the conferences decided. We'll know who's playing for the big prize next week, and
we'll give a full preview of next week, hopefully. And we're getting down to it here. We're getting down to it in the NBA playoffs and NFL tonight, Bob Ryan. Tonight, Kansas City and Houston with fans in attendance at the Dome, right?
That'll be very interesting. Yep, I'm ready.
I'm ready too. Are you kidding? I'm excited for NFL action this weekend. So, all right, listen, be safe, and we'll talk next week.